I wonder what you make of some of the narrative from some who are hopeful, optimistic, bullish, that there is an exit ramp and it can be used in these talks in which Ukraine would sort of forswear some form of NATO membership. Would that be enough? I wonder if you think there's if that's folly or if that's worth paying attention to.
Well, you want to hang on to any hopes you have. I mean, it's a very difficult situation. All these comments about war crimes and war criminal trials, well, we really can't get close to the negotiating table with those kinds of charges going on. So that makes things difficult. I think you saw the market and the oil price ease a little bit when there were supposedly overtures for humanitarian ceasefires today. They turned out not to really hold up too well, and that's why we're starting to back off here. There's a report that we can't send top flight U.S. fighter planes to the Ukraine because there's nobody to train the pilots. But they can fly Russian MiGs, and there's supposedly a potential swap going on in which Poland would send some of their existing MiGs from when they were in the Warsaw Pact to the Ukraine. If that were to happen, that's going to hype things, and the markets will get very volatile then to see how Putin reacts, because if the Ukrainians have air power, some of these things like that 40-mile armored tank group, it would be vulnerable. So the game's not over. We cross our fingers. You can see this morning the market reacts hopefully to any overtures of ceasefires, but people don't believe it. The James Bond division of Wall Street thinks that Putin's got a 4 to 6 week pressure point on him, and then the weather changes enough to make the soil and other transportation problems difficult.
Right. Meanwhile, these sort of nascent attempts at brokering broader talks. You had the Israeli prime minister over the weekend in Moscow. We've had a couple headlines that hint maybe China. Art, I thought about you last week because you've long said that, especially when it comes to food insecurity, China can get very nervous very quickly. Why wouldn't they want to at least find something to stabilize the situation?
Oh, I'm sure he does. President Xi wants to get to the end of this year. He wants to be unprecedentedly reappointed, make him leader for life, almost like Mao. And one of the things, or two of the things that could trouble him would be a very big shortage and pop in either fuel and or food, and it looks like they're having both of those. I mean, Ukraine was long thought of as the breadbasket of Europe. They put out more wheat and other things, and so it could lead to a food shortage. I think China would like to get involved, but I think he wants to do this with a set of tweezers rather than going hands-on for now. If things get more desperate, then he will definitely get involved. So I would also keep an eye on those food prices in China.
So much to keep an eye on, Art. Happy birthday, by the way. And just in terms of that
Thank you.
In terms of that fighter jet swap, I mean, sending MiGs, those would be MiGs coming from Poland to Ukraine. The U.S. would resupply Poland with Lockheed Martin-made F-16s. Unclear whether we're actually going to see that swap happen because, to your point, while it would very much help the Ukrainian military, unclear, not unclear, clear that it would ratchet tensions with Russia as well. So we'll have to see how all of that plays out militarily, too. But I'm just curious, the last time you were on the show was actually the day that we saw this invasion take place in earnest. I'm going to revisit a question we asked you then, and that is this starting to feel like the late 1970s to you in terms of some of these major macro challenges that are playing out?
Yeah, well, and I think, as I said at the time, you have to be a little careful. I think you reshaped that question relative to Russia and Afghanistan, which was a slightly different point. But, yeah, no, I think there is very high volatility. As I said, there's a potential leadership change or reconfiguration about to go on in China. You've got Putin kind of out on a limb. This can't be going the way he hoped it would. And if the Wall Street James Bond group is right, then he's got a couple of weeks he's facing. So the old supposed Chinese curse, may you live in interesting times. It looks like the next several weeks will be, unfortunately, very, very interesting.
Art, if you were on set, we'd obviously present you with the bottle of something special to go with the ice cubes. But in lieu of that, a happy birthday. Talk to you soon.
Well, I thank you, and I thank you for the spirits in which it was almost given.
Art Cashin.
Spirits for spirits. As we head to break.